I never imagined a single phone call could unravel everything I thought I knew about family. But when my mother's voice, sweet as honey, drifted through the line, I felt a spark of hope I hadn't known in years. "Danielle, come home for dinner," she said, her words wrapping around me like a warm blanket. It's been too long since we've all been together. At 40, I'd built a life in San Francisco, far from the Sacramento house where I grew up. But that invitation stirred something deep, a longing for connection I thought I'd buried. Little did I know that dinner would be a trap, a perfectly staged betrayal that would shatter my world. 2 weeks ago, I sat in my sleek office, the San Francisco skyline glittering through the window, when my mother called. Her voice was softer than usual, lacking the sharp edge that often accompanied her requests for money or favors. I hesitated, my fingers tracing the edge of my desk. For over a decade, my parents' affection had felt conditional, a transaction tied to what I could provide. But a part of me, the part that still remembered family vacations and laughter around the dining table, wanted to believe this time was different. Maybe they missed me. Maybe they saw me as more than a checkbook. So I cleared my packed schedule, canceled a client meeting, and made the 90-mile drive to Sacramento, the highway stretching before me like a thread of possibility. When I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, the familiar red brick house glowed under the evening sun, its windows catching the light like old memories. Inside, the dining room was a picture of warmth. Flickering candles cast shadows on the walls, the vintage chandelier sparkled above, and the rich aroma of beef stew filled the air. My mother greeted me with a smile, her arms open wide. My father nodded from his seat, his eyes soft but distant. Parker, my younger brother, lounged at the table, his smirk barely hidden. Olivia, my 28-year-old sister, twirled a strand of hair, her green eyes glinting with something I couldn't place. I sat down, my heart light with hope, the clink of silverware a gentle rhythm against the promise of a warm evening. But that promise shattered faster than a dropped wine glass. Barely 10 minutes into dinner, Parker leaned back, his voice smooth as polished stone. "To avoid any misunderstandings later, Mom and Dad want you to know now," he said, pausing for effect. "The will, everything, the house, the Tahoe villa, it's all going to Olivia and me." The words hit me like a blade, slicing through the warmth of the room. I set my fork down, the stew suddenly heavy in my stomach. "What?" I managed, my voice dry as dust. My mother sighed, her face a mask of practiced calm. "Your father and I have finalized it, Danielle. You have your career, your house. You don't need it. Parker and Olivia do." I turned to my father, praying he'd refute it, that this was some cruel joke. But he only stared into his wine glass, his silence louder than any words. My chest tightened, a cold ache spreading through me. I'd driven 90 miles for this, left behind my work, my life, for a family I thought might finally see me. But the candles, the chandelier, the stew, it was all a lie, a carefully orchestrated trap to deliver their verdict. I wasn't their daughter. I was an outsider, my sacrifices invisible, my place in their hearts erased. As Parker's smirk widened and Olivia's eyes gleamed with triumph, I realized the dinner wasn't a reunion. It was an ambush, and I'd walked right into it. The dining room, once a cocoon of warmth, turned suffocating, the candlelight now casting jagged shadows across my family's faces. Parker's words about the will echoed in my skull, each syllable a hammer striking my trust to pieces. My mother's calm justification, that I didn't need the inheritance because of my career, felt like a slap, and my father's silence was a betrayal of its own. At 40, I'd built a life I was proud of, but sitting at that table, I felt like a child, small and unseen. My fork rested beside my plate, the stew untouched, as a storm brewed in my chest. I couldn't stay quiet. Not this time. I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to stay steady. "You're saying I get nothing, after everything I've done?" My words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. Parker shrugged, his smirk infuriatingly casual. "You've got your fancy job, Danielle. Olivia and I need more support." Olivia chimed in, twirling her hair with a mocking smile. Yeah, you're doing fine. Why be greedy? Greedy? The word ignited something in me, a spark that flared into fury. Greedy? I repeated, my voice rising. Let's talk about what I've done for this family. For years, I've paid the mortgage on this house, $1,500 a month. I've covered utilities, water, electricity, and internet, another $600. I paid $40,000 to renovate the Tahoe villa because you, I pointed at my mother, said it was a family asset. My mother crossed her arms, her gaze cold as winter. Danielle, there's no need to overreact. We've thought this through. Parker and Olivia need a foundation to build their lives. I laughed, but it was hollow, a sound that echoed my disbelief. A foundation? Olivia, you're 28 and haven't held a job longer than 6 months. Parker, how many majors have you switched? 5? 6? And you've paid for every single one of his tuition fees, I said, turning to my parents. I've been the one keeping this family afloat, and you call me greedy? Olivia rolled her eyes, her voice dripping with mockery. Oh, so you're keeping tabs on every dollar? That's disappointing, Danielle. You're rich. Do you need to be so stingy? Stingy. The accusation burned, twisting the knife deeper. This isn't about money, I snapped, my heart pounding. This is about fairness. I've put my dreams on hold. Travel, a bigger home, investments, because I was paying for you, and now you act like I'm invisible? My father finally looked up, his eyes weary but offering no defense. Danielle, we love all our children, he mumbled, the words empty. Love? I scoffed, my laughter sharp and bitter. If this is love, it's a one-way street. I've poured hundreds of thousands into this family, and you repay me by writing me out of your lives. My mother slammed her hand on the table, the glasses rattling. Enough, Danielle. Stop acting like a victim. You always think about money. We did this because we care about Parker and Olivia. Her words were a blade, slicing through the last threads of my hope. I stared at her, then at Parker's smug grin, Olivia's indifferent shrug, and my father's averted gaze. The truth hit me like a tidal wave. I wasn't their daughter. I was their bank, a resource to be drained and discarded. The realization settled in my bones, cold and clear. I gripped the edge of the tablecloth, my knuckles white, and stood, the chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I'm done, I said, my voice low but unshakable. My mother blinked, her facade cracking. What did you just say? I met her gaze, unflinching. I'm done. No more payments, no more sacrifices. You don't need me, and I don't need you. Parker laughed, a nervous edge to it. You're going to cut us off over this? Grow up, Danielle. My mother's voice turned sharp. If you walk out that door, don't expect to come back. I paused, my hand on the doorframe, a smirk curling my lips. Don't worry, I said, my words like ice. I won't. I stepped into the night, the Sacramento air cool against my skin, my heart pounding with rage and resolve. They thought they could use me forever, but they were wrong. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was free, and they'd soon learn what that meant. The 90-mile drive back to San Francisco felt like a lifeline, the highway lights streaking past my windshield like fleeting promises of freedom. My hands gripped the steering wheel, my heart still racing from the confrontation in Sacramento. At 40, I'd spent over a decade believing family was my anchor, but that dinner had revealed the truth. They were a weight, dragging me under. As the city skyline emerged, glittering against the night, I felt a shift inside me, not just anger, but clarity. I wasn't going back, not to their demands, not to their betrayal. I was done, and the weight of that decision was both terrifying and exhilarating. When I reached my apartment, the quiet was a balm. I tossed my keys onto the counter, poured a glass of red wine, and sank into the couch, the city's hum a distant lullaby. My phone buzzed relentlessly, missed calls from my mother, texts from Olivia, but I ignored them, letting the silence speak for me. The next morning, I opened my banking app, my finger hovering over the screen. Every month, for years, I'd sent $2,100 to keep my family afloat. $500 for their mortgage, $600 for utilities, electricity, water, internet, and maintenance. Then there were the extras: Parker's endless tuition, Olivia's designer whims, my mother's suggested holiday gifts. It added up to hundreds of thousands, a fortune I'd poured into a void. I tapped the cancel recurring payments button, the screen flashing, successfully canceled. A rush of relief washed over me, like shedding chains I'd carried too long. But freedom came with a cost. By noon, my phone was a battlefield. My mother's first voicemail was a masterclass in guilt. "Danielle, how could you do this? The house is struggling. Family helps each other." I deleted it, my jaw tight. The second was sharper. "Don't be selfish. Call me back." Olivia's texts were venomous. "You're pathetic, Danielle. So petty and selfish. You've destroyed this family." Parker's call went to voicemail, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're a greedy leech cutting off mom and dad over nothing." I laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Nothing? I'd given them everything. My money, my dreams, my future. And they dared call me greedy? My father's message was softer, but no less manipulative. "Danielle, reconsider. Your mother's upset. We're family." Family. The word felt like a lie, hollow as their promises. I stood at my kitchen counter, coffee steaming in my mug, and stared at my phone. Each message was a hook, trying to reel me back into their cycle of need. But I saw it now. Their anger wasn't about love, it was about control. They didn't miss me, they missed my wallet. I opened my contact list, my thumb steady as I blocked their numbers one by one. Mom, Dad, Olivia, Parker. Their names vanished, and with them, the noise. For the first time in years, my apartment felt like a sanctuary, not a way station for their demands. I sipped my coffee, the bitterness grounding me, and let the peace settle in. Yet, I wasn't naive. Blocking their numbers wouldn't end this. They'd relied on me too long to let go easily, and their desperation would sharpen into something uglier. As I gazed out my window, the San Francisco fog curling over the bay, I braced myself. They'd come for me, not with apologies, but with accusations, maybe worse. My fingers tightened around my mug, a quiet resolve hardening in my chest. I'd spent a decade being their savior, but no more. They thought they could guilt me into submission, but they'd underestimated me. At 40, I was no longer the dutiful daughter, bending to their whims. I was a woman reclaiming her life, and they'd soon feel the weight of that truth. The silence stretched through the day, a fragile gift I knew wouldn't last. I went about my routine, emails, meetings, a jog through Golden Gate Park, but my mind churned, anticipating their next move. They'd always seen me as a resource, not a person, and my refusal to play that role was a threat they wouldn't ignore. As dusk painted the sky in hues of amber, I stood on my balcony, the city lights flickering below. I'd given them everything, but now I was taking it back. My money, my peace, my future. They were mine again, and no amount of their rage could change that. 3 weeks of silence felt like a miracle, a fragile bubble of peace I hadn't known in years. My San Francisco apartment had become a haven, free from the relentless buzz of my family's demands. At 40, I was rediscovering myself, jogging along the bay, diving into work, even signing up for a photography class I'd always postponed. But I wasn't foolish enough to think they'd let me go. My family thrived on control, and my defiance was a wound they'd never ignore. When my phone buzzed with a message from my mother, family meeting, 7:00 p.m., Sacramento. "This is your responsibility." My stomach twisted. It wasn't an olive branch. It was a summons, and I knew exactly what awaited me. I drove the 90 miles to Sacramento, the familiar red brick house looming like a stage set for confrontation. A foolish part of me hoped for remorse, but as I stepped onto the porch, my mother's fake smile greeted me, her eyes sharp as knives. Inside, Parker's BMW and Olivia's pink Mini Cooper sat in the driveway, a smug declaration of their presence. My father sat stiffly in the living room, Parker and Olivia sprawled on the couch, their grins dripping with triumph. I pulled out a chair, crossed my legs, and forced my voice to stay even. "So, what's this about?" My father cleared his throat, his tone heavy. "We need to resolve this tension, Danielle." I let out a dry chuckle. You mean the fact that I stopped paying your bills? My mother's voice was syrupy, a practiced act. You overreacted, Danielle. We only wanted what's best for you. Parker scoffed, leaning forward. Did you even think before cutting us off? It's childish. My jaw clenched, fury simmering. Childish. I've kept you afloat for a decade. Mortgage, utilities, your tuition. If anyone's childish, it's you, leeching off me while mocking my sacrifices. Olivia's voice was soft, venomous. You're just mad about the will. Stop playing the victim. I stood, my gaze sweeping their faces. I came hoping you'd see your mistake. But you're still the same, selfish, ungrateful leeches. My mother shot up, her voice ablade. If you walk out, don't expect to be welcomed back. I turned, my hand on the doorknob, my words ice cold. I never was. The drive back was a blur, my heart pounding with defiance. But when I reached my apartment, my breath caught. My door was sealed shut, a thick layer of grayish-white, expanding foam spilling over the frame, hardened like cement. My pulse raced as I opened my security camera app, rewinding the footage. There he was, Parker, in a gray hoodie, his cap pulled low, smirking as he sprayed foam across my door, each motion a deliberate insult. My hands clenched, fury boiling in my veins. He thought he could intimidate me, scare me into submission. He was wrong. I stood in the hallway, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows, and let the anger settle into resolve. This wasn't just vandalism, it was a declaration of war. Parker assumed I'd crumble, that I'd crawl back to Sacramento begging for their forgiveness. But at 40, I'd learned to fight my own battles. I called the police, my voice steady as I explained the situation. A young officer arrived, his expression a mix of sympathy and professionalism. I showed him the footage, Parker's smug face unmistakable. "Do you want to file a formal complaint?" he asked, pen poised over his notebook. I let out a cold chuckle. "I didn't call you for a chat." He nodded, starting the report. "Parker's your brother, right?" My gaze was steel. Not anymore. As the officer left, I stood before my sealed door, the foam a grotesque monument to their arrogance. They thought they could break me with petty stunts, but they'd miscalculated. I wasn't the Danielle who'd paid their bills without question. I was someone new, someone who'd fight back. The night air was cool against my skin as I stepped outside, my phone heavy in my hand. This wasn't over, but for the first time I held the power, and Parker would soon learn what that meant. The morning after Parker's vandalism, my San Francisco apartment hallway smelled of chemical residue, the foam-sealed door a mocking reminder of my family's audacity. At 40, I'd faced their betrayal, their insults, their threats, but this was a line crossed, a gauntlet thrown. Standing in the dawn's pale light, my phone clutched tightly, I felt not fear, but a blazing resolve. They thought they could bully me into silence, but I was done being their pawn. Parker's smug smirk on the security footage fueled my determination. He'd learned that actions had consequences, and I was ready to deliver them. The police report was only the beginning. By noon, my father called, his voice heavy with feigned concern. "Danielle, sweetheart, does this have to go so far?" I leaned against my kitchen counter, the city's hum filtering through the window. "Are you asking me to drop the charges?" I said, my tone sharp. He hesitated. "It's just..." Parker was upset. "He didn't mean harm." I scoffed, the sound harsh in the quiet. "No harm?" He sealed my door shut. "What if I had a meeting today? What if I had a pet trapped inside?" Silence stretched, his guilt palpable. "He thought he could intimidate me," I continued, my voice like steel. "I'll show him he picked the wrong person." I didn't wait for his excuses. "Here's the deal," I said, my words deliberate. $33,000. That covers the door repair, legal fees if this drags out, and damages for harassment. It's reasonable. My father's voice cracked. "That's extortion, Danielle." I chuckled, cold and unyielding. "No, Dad, it's consequences. Parker doesn't have the money? You and Mom can cover it. You've been bailing him out his whole life." He stammered, "You're tearing this family apart." I hung up, my pulse steady. They'd built this mess, not me. 3 days later, my bank account pinged. $33,000, transferred from my parents' joint account. No apologies, no messages, just silence. For the first time, they'd paid a price. But their defeat was temporary. Soon, my inbox flooded with messages from distant relatives, their words a chorus of judgment orchestrated by my mother. Aunt Susan. I'm disappointed, Danielle. Your parents sacrificed everything, and this is how you repay them? Uncle Mark. Don't let money make you lose your humanity. Family is forever. Cousin Rachel. You're heartless abandoning your parents like this. They're about to lose their home. I read each one, a mix of amusement and disgust swirling in my chest. My mother had spun a tale, casting me as the villain, a greedy daughter who'd cut off her struggling family. It was a lie, and I wouldn't let it stand. I opened my laptop, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. I rarely post online, but today I'd reclaim my truth. My fingers flew across the keyboard, each word a blade carving through their deception. I tried to be a good daughter, but my family never loved me, I wrote. For over a decade, I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, mortgage, utilities, my siblings' tuition. I never complained, believing family supports each other. But when my parents wrote their will, they left everything to Parker and Olivia. When I asked why, they said, "You have a career." When I stopped paying, they called me selfish. Now they spread lies that I've abandoned them, that they're losing their home. The truth? They're only losing the money I gave for years. I share this not for pity, but for anyone exploited by family. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal, it's self-respect. I hit post, my heart pounding with defiance. Within hours, the post exploded, hundreds of shares, thousands of comments. Strangers wrote, "You're so strong, Danielle. You don't owe them anything." Friends added, "I've been there. Keep shining." But there were critics too. Family's flawed, but airing this is shameful. I didn't care. The truth was out, raw and unfiltered. My mother called that evening, her voice a hiss of rage. "Danielle, what the hell are you doing? You're destroying our reputation." I stood on my balcony, the San Francisco skyline glittering below, and smiled. "No, Mom," I said calmly. "You did that when you made me the villain in your story." She sputtered, "You'll regret this." I hung up, the phone's weight light in my hand. Regret? No. For the first time, I felt free. The $33,000 was a victory, but the post was my liberation. They couldn't hide behind lies anymore. As I sipped wine, the city's lights a constellation of possibility. I knew they'd fight back, harder, dirtier. But at 40, I was no longer the daughter who'd bend. I was a woman who'd claimed her voice, and no one could silence me now. Months after my Facebook post, the San Francisco fog felt like a cleansing veil, washing away the last traces of my family's hold on me. At 40, I stood on the precipice of a life I'd never dared imagine, one where my time, my money, my heart were mine alone. The silence that followed my public truth was profound, no longer punctuated by guilt-laden calls or venomous texts. The void left by their absence wasn't a loss. It was space, vast and open, for me to rebuild. I'd once thought their betrayal, cutting me out of the will, was a wound. But now, as I sipped coffee on my balcony, the city's pulse syncing with my own, I saw it for what it was, a gift of freedom. With no one leeching off my income, I poured my energy into passions I'd shelved for years. I enrolled in a photography class, my camera capturing the golden hues of the Golden Gate Bridge at dusk, each click a step toward rediscovery. I traveled, something I'd postponed while funding my family's whims. In Paris, I sat by the Seine, the river's ripple mirroring my newfound calm. 6 months later, I stood atop Machu Picchu, the Andean wind fierce and alive, whispering that I was enough, just as I was. My bank account, once a sieve for their endless needs, now grew, a testament to my reclaimed autonomy. For the first time, I was responsible only for myself, and that weightlessness was worth more than any inheritance. Then came Alex, a quiet breeze in a life I'd stopped expecting to surprise me. We met on a hiking trip in Yosemite, his laughter cutting through the forest's stillness. He was different. No demands, no expectations, just a steady presence that saw me, not what I could offer. Over campfire conversations, I shared my story, my voice steady, unashamed. He listened, his eyes warm, never once asking me to justify my choices. With Alex, I didn't need to buy love or prove my worth. I only needed to be Danielle, and that was enough. Our connection grew, rooted in mutual respect, a stark contrast to the transactional bonds I'd once called family. News of my old family trickled in, not through their voices but through whispers from mutual acquaintances. My mother, once commanding with her demands, now worked as a waitress at a Sacramento diner, her designer purses replaced by an apron's practical weight. My father, silent through every injustice, labored at a construction supply store, his hands roughened by a life he'd never planned. Parker, who'd mocked me as he sealed my door, was unemployed, his startup dreams crumbling without my subsidies. Olivia, forever chasing Instagram stardom, floundered, her vacations and couture outfits a memory no one would fund. They were struggling, each tethered to the consequences of their greed, but I felt no guilt. I'd given them a decade of chances, and they'd squandered every one. Standing on my balcony one December evening, the city lights shimmering like scattered stars, I reflected on the journey. A year ago, I'd sat at that Sacramento dinner table, hoping for love, only to find betrayal. I'd poured hundreds of thousands into a family that saw me as a means, not an end. But their decision to cut me out had been my salvation. It forced me to see the truth, to break free, to build a life where I was the priority. My mother's threats, Parker's vandalism, their lies, they'd tried to chain me, but I'd slipped free, stronger for it. Now I live unburdened, my heart no longer a ledger of their demands. My story isn't just mine, it's a beacon for anyone trapped by those who should cherish them most. If you've ever felt used, drained by the very people meant to lift you, know this. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. Sometimes losing a toxic family isn't a wound, it's wings. I found mine, soaring above the ruins of their betrayal, and I have no regrets. What about you? Have you faced a family that took more than they gave? Share your thoughts below, and let's talk about what it means to choose yourself. Because in the end, that's the greatest victory of all. They stood in my Seattle apartment like they owned it, my mother's perfume sharp as a blade, my brother's smirk a silent dare. I'm Olivia, 32, and I've built a life from scraps they never noticed. 6 figures, a corner office, a view of Puget Sound that glitters like a promise. But that Thursday, Victoria and Liam weren't here to admire my view. They wanted my money, and I was done bleeding for them. The air crackled with their expectations, and I felt the old weight of their voices, the ones that called me selfish, dramatic, too much. This time, I wouldn't bend. Victoria's heels clicked on my hardwood floor, her eyes scanning my furniture like she was pricing it. "You're being selfish, Olivia," she said, voice smooth as ice. "This is what family does." I'd heard those words before, when I was 13, handing over $200 in birthday cash so Liam could go to soccer camp. At 17, skipping prom to pay for my SAT tutor because they couldn't afford both. At 22, juggling 3 jobs through college while Liam, 36 now, burned through Dad's retirement on his 3rd failed business, still lounging rent-free in their Tacoma guest house. My arms were folded tightly. "No," I said, "I'm not giving you my money." Victoria blinked like I'd slapped her. Her lips thinned. "It's not your money. It's family money. We raised you." My pulse hammered, but my voice stayed steady. "You raised me to survive you, and I supported myself." She stood there, a stranger in my home, never once congratulating me on the job that got me here. $120,000 a year, full benefits. Liam leaned against my kitchen counter, smirking like he'd already won. "Look, Liv," he said, "it's not that deep. Just help out. My new startup's a sure thing." I met his eyes. "I'm not funding your 4th startup, Liam. You blew through Mom's emergency fund and Dad's 401k. I'm not next." His face twisted. "Wow, you think you're better than us now?" I didn't flinch. "No," I said softly. "I've always known I was." Victoria's eyes flashed. "We're your family. Without us, you'd be nothing. I opened the door, the Seattle drizzle hissing outside. Then you'll be fine without me. She didn't move, her voice low. You'll regret this. Blood is blood. I stared until she walked out, Liam trailing like a sulking child. The door clicked shut and I exhaled, thinking it was over. I was wrong. That Monday, 10 miles away at my office, the receptionist handed me an envelope, her face pale. I'm sorry, Olivia. You have to sign. A man in a suit waited in the lobby, his smile smug. Olivia, right? You've been served. My hand stayed steady until I read the first line in the break room, the fluorescent lights buzzing like wasps. Petition for conservatorship based on mental incompetence. I sat down hard, the paper trembling. They weren't just after my money, they wanted to erase me. I grew up in a house where silence was currency, love a transaction. In Tacoma, 35 miles south, Liam could have set the kitchen on fire and been called creative. I got grounded for a B+ in math. Favoritism wasn't subtle. It was a birthday with no candles. My name skipped at the dinner table, Mom telling neighbors, Liam's our little genius, while I stood there, scholarship in hand. I learned early to keep records. At 11, I recorded Mom screaming, I stole her bracelet. Liam had pawned it for weed, but she never asked him. That file, backed up on 3 drives, was my armor. Back in my apartment, I opened my laptop, folders labeled by date, by pain, gaslighting, threats, manipulation. Voicemails played, Mom's voice cold. Don't embarrass us, Olivia. Help Liam. Liam's laughter is in the background. My voice, small, then stronger. I wasn't crazy, just raised by people who needed me to think I was. My hands stopped shaking. They'd come for me, but I'd been ready for years. They trained me to survive, and now they'd face the woman I'd become. The Seattle skyline blinked through my window, a city that didn't care about my past but held my future. I'm Olivia, 32, and my family's court papers sat on my desk like a loaded gun. Mental incompetence, a lie to steal my life. I'd survived their games before, but this was war, and I couldn't fight alone. My laptop glowed with evidence, years of their words weaponized against me. I needed allies, people who'd see the truth beneath their polished lies. The city hummed and I picked up my phone, heart racing, to call the one person who'd always had my back. Nico answered on the second ring, his voice sharp. Liv, what's wrong? I exhaled, the weight of the papers pressing my chest. They're trying to put me under conservatorship, claiming I'm unfit. Silence then. What the actual hell? Nico, my college debate partner, knew the scars of my Tacoma childhood. Liam's tantrums, Mom's ice, Dad's absence. I need help, I said. Legal help. And I think I know who to ask. He didn't hesitate. Send me everything. We'll bury them. I smiled, the first in days, and emailed him my archive. Texts, recordings, screenshots of Liam's 2 a.m. demands for cash. Next, I pulled out an old photo album from last Christmas, buried in my parents' attic under tax forms and Liam's baby teeth, 35 miles away. A 1993 picture showed Mom, younger, beside a woman with my eyes. The back read, Yvette, don't tell Derek, in faded ink. Mom said Yvette was dead. Google said otherwise, a family lawyer in Bellevue, 15 miles east, with Mom's maiden name. I drove through the drizzle, clutching the photo like a talisman, and walked into Yvette McBride's office unannounced. The receptionist hesitated. No appointment? I swallowed. It's about Victoria. Her eyes flickered. Wait here. 10 minutes later, Yvette emerged, mid-60s, silver hair in a tight bun, suit sharp as her gaze. She stopped, eyes widening. Olivia? I nodded, handing her the photo. This was in their attic. You're in it. Her jaw tightened as she stared. I didn't think she kept this. I pulled the court papers from my bag. They're claiming I'm mentally unfit to take my finances. Yvette scanned them, her face unreadable. This is serious. I met her eyes. That's why I'm here. You're the only one they erased like me. She leaned back, tapping the papers. Do you have evidence? I opened my laptop, voicemails, texts, a clip of Liam demanding $5,000. Her eyes sharpened. Send me everything. We'll file a response and request a hearing. I nodded, relief flooding me. Thank you. She paused. Olivia, do you understand what you're starting? I didn't blink. They started it. Back in Seattle, I drove 12 miles to Renton to meet Savannah, Liam's ex, in her small, clean apartment. A dog barked from the back. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, sharper than when I'd last seen her at a family dinner. Why now? She asked. I leaned forward. Because you know who Liam is, and I think you're tired of pretending. She studied me, then stepped aside. 5 minutes. Inside, she tossed a hoodie over laundry and sat, legs bouncing. He drained our joint account, she said it was a business emergency, bought a drone and a PS5. I nodded. Sounds like him, she scoffed. He said I was lucky to be with him, that my job didn't matter because he'd be a millionaire by 30. He's 36. I opened my audio app. Can I record? She hesitated, then nodded. Only if you protect me from court, I promised to try, hitting record. She took a breath. Thanksgiving 2 years ago at your parents'. Liam was drunk, yelling about your promotion, how you thought you were better. My phone was in the baby's room, monitor on. It caught everything. My eyes widened. You have it? She handed me a flash drive, her fingers cold. There's more. Your mom told me you were unstable, had episodes. Said if Liam needed to protect the family, they had ways to handle you. My stomach twisted. She said that to you? Savannah nodded. I didn't believe her until I saw how they treated you. I left with the flash drive, its weight heavier than its size. Back home, Nico sat on my floor, laptop open, sorting files. This voicemail, he said, where your mom says, you're just like your aunt, always ruining everything. It's gold. Proves she knows Yvette exists. I pulled out a USB drive. This has the 2018 Christmas recording, Liam calling me a parasite for not paying his car loan. Nico whistled. Your family's a mess. I stared at my screen, folders labeled threats, manipulation. You've only seen the highlights. He looked up. You okay? I didn't know, but I was ready. They thought I was a ghost. I'd show them I was fired. The Bellevue law office smelled of leather and old books, a world away from the Tacoma house where I'd learned to hide my voice. I'm Olivia, 32, and my laptop sat open on Yvette's desk, its folders, gaslighting, threats, manipulation, a map of my survival. The conservatorship petition loomed like a storm, but I wasn't alone anymore. Nico's tech skills, Savannah's flash drive, and Yvette's legal mind were my arsenal. The Seattle rain tapped the windows, steady as a pulse, and I felt it. The shift from fear to fight. My family thought they'd break me. They'd forgotten who they'd trained. Yvette leaned back in her chair, eyes scanning a text from Liam demanding $5,000 at 2 a.m. This is gold, she said, her voice sharp as her suit. It shows intent, pattern, and character. I nodded, the weight of years lifting slightly. What's our move? She tapped a pen against the desk. We file a response to the petition, request a hearing, and submit this as evidence. Savannah's Thanksgiving recording, your voicemails, the texts. We'll need more, though. Medical records, employment history, anything proving you're stable. I pulled a folder from my bag. School records, performance reviews, no debt, no diagnoses. Clean. She took it, her lips twitching. They underestimated you. She paused, eyes narrowing. There's something else. The photo you found, your mom and I with Thomas. I think he's your real father. My breath caught. You're sure? She shook her head. Not yet. But Victoria changed your birth certificate in 1995. If Derek isn't your father, their claim collapses. My stomach churned. Why would she do that? Yvette's gaze hardened. Money. If you're Derek's daughter, they can tie your finances to a family trust. If not, they have no standing. I swallowed. Let's get a DNA test, quietly. She nodded, already in motion. Results in a week. Back in my Seattle apartment, 15 miles away, Nico sprawled on my couch, laptop glowing. "This 2018 Christmas recording," he said, "where Liam screams you're a parasite for not paying his car loan? It's brutal." I sat beside him, the city lights flickering outside. "Play it." Liam's voice slurred through the speakers. Mom's in the background. "Olivia, don't make a scene." Nico winced. "This shows they've been gaslighting you forever." I nodded, pulling up a voicemail from Mom. "You're just like your aunt, always ruining everything." Nico grinned. "That's admissible. Proves Yvette exists, and they lied about her." We sorted files late into the night, labeling them admissible evidence. A text from Savannah popped up, a bank statement showing Liam used her name for a $10,000 credit line. "He said Victoria would cover it," she wrote. I forwarded it to Yvette. "This is fraud," I said. Nico looked up, eyes serious. "Liv, this isn't just about the conservatorship, it's bigger." I stared at the folders, my life reduced to timestamps and pain. "It always was." He nudged my shoulder. "You're ready for this?" I didn't know if I was, but I wasn't backing down. The next morning, Yvette emailed a draft response to the petition, CCing me. "We're requesting an independent psych evaluation," she wrote. "Voluntary. It'll shut down their mental incompetence claim." I read the document, her words precise, cutting. She'd attached Savannah's recording and my financial records. $120,000 salary, no missed payments. My hands shook, not from fear, but from power. They'd called me unstable, but I'd built a life they couldn't touch. Now, I'd use it to bury them. I met Nico at a diner, 5 miles from my office, sliding him a USB drive. "More texts," I said. "Liam threatening to ruin me if I didn't send $3,000 last year?" He plugged it in, whistling. "This guy's a walking lawsuit." I sipped my coffee, the steam curling like resolve. "He's about to find out." Yvette's words echoed. "They underestimated you." They had. I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my name, my truth, my life. The hearing was 2 weeks away, and I was sharpening my blades. The Tacoma house loomed in the midnight dark, 35 miles from my Seattle sanctuary, its silence thicker than the rain. I'm Olivia, 32, and the attic safe held secrets my family thought buried. Yvette's DNA test was pending, but I needed more proof of their lies beyond my recordings. The conservatorship hearing was closing in, and the mediation session tomorrow would test my resolve. My key still worked, the door creaking as I slipped inside, heart pounding. They'd tried to erase me, but I was rewriting the story. The attic smelled of dust and deceit, Christmas boxes hiding the safe I'd glimpsed as a kid. Victoria always called its contents boring paperwork. I knelt, fingers tracing the dial. Liam's birthday, proof of their favoritism, clicked it open. Inside, folders spilled out, tax returns, legal documents, and an envelope with my name in shaky handwriting. I opened it, breath hitching. "Olivia, if you're reading this, I failed you. I watched you grow, stronger than Victoria ever imagined. You deserve the truth. Love, Yvette." My eyes stung. She'd been there, silenced like me, but she'd left me a lifeline. Another envelope, addressed to Victoria, held a 1995 birth certificate, mine, listing Derek as my father. A notarized letter contradicted it, hinting at Thomas as my real father. My chest tightened. They'd rewritten my identity for a trust fund, funneling my grandfather's money to Liam alone. I stuffed the papers in my bag, the attic walls closing in. Downstairs, the house was still, but it felt alive with their lies. I drove back to Seattle, the envelope burning in my passenger seat. The next day, the Tacoma house smelled of lemon cleaner and pretense, 35 miles from my truth. Court-mandated mediation was a trap, but Yvette said it was strategic. Let them expose themselves. Victoria greeted me with a fake smile. "Olivia, you look tired." I stepped inside, voice steady. "You look desperate." Derek clutched a mug in the living room, avoiding my eyes. The mediator, a calm woman in her 50s, opened her notebook. "Let's begin." Victoria started, voice syrupy. "We love our daughter, but she's under stress. making irrational decisions. I snorted. Like not giving you my money? Victoria's smile faltered. Like accusing us of theft. I slid a printed email across the table. 2017, Mom asking me to co-sign a $20,000 loan for Liam. I'd refused, and she'd called me a selfish little girl. The mediator raised an eyebrow. Victoria's face stayed blank. Out of context, I pulled another, a text from Liam. Send me $5,000 or I'll ruin you. Derek finally spoke, his voice weak. Olivia, you're blowing this out of proportion. I turned to him, the photo of Thomas in my bag like a grenade. Did you know I'm not your daughter? Silence swallowed the room. Victoria's face went white. Derek blinked. What? I pressed on. Mom had an affair with Thomas when I was conceived. You changed my birth certificate to tie me to the family trust, then funneled it all to Liam. Victoria stood, voice shrill. This is ridiculous. The mediator cleared her throat. Let's pause. I shook my head. No, we're finishing. Victoria leaned over the table, eyes wild. You think you can destroy us? You're a bitter little girl with daddy issues. I stood, bag in hand. No, I'm a woman with evidence. I turned to Derek. Did you know? He didn't answer. Victoria snapped. He knew. He didn't care, as long as the money stayed in the family. Derek flinched. Victoria. I stared at him. You're worse than she is. I walked out, the door slamming behind me. The rain hit my face, but I felt alive, unburied. Back in Seattle, I called Yvette, voice steady. I found papers in the safe. My original birth certificate, a letter about Thomas, proof they stole my inheritance. She exhaled. That's dynamite. If the DNA confirms Thomas is your father, their case is dead. I opened the envelope, rereading Yvette's letter. There's more. She wrote to me, said I was stronger than they imagined. Yvette's voice softened. She's right. I hung up, staring at the city lights. They'd built a cage around me, but I'd found the key. The hearing was days away, and I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my blood, my name, my truth. The King County Courthouse in Seattle smelled of polished wood and nerves, its high ceilings echoing whispers of justice. I'm Olivia, 32, and today, my family's lies would face the fire I'd kindled with years of evidence. The conservatorship petition was a noose they'd tied, but Yvette's strategy, Savannah's recording, and the attic's secrets, my birth certificate, Yvette's letter, were my blades. Nico sat beside me, his hand steady on a water bottle, while Savannah nodded from the gallery, her presence a quiet vow. The gavel's echo called us to stand, and I breathed deep, ready to burn their empire down. Judge Ree, tall and unsmiling, scanned the room, her eyes sharp as scalpels. My parents and Liam sat across the aisle, dressed like a family Christmas card. Victoria in pearls, Liam in a pressed suit, Derek's gaze fixed on the floor. Their lawyer, Carson, rose, all smug polish. Your Honor, the Hayes family seeks conservatorship out of concern for Olivia's mental well-being. She's shown erratic, paranoid behavior, isolating herself and making reckless financial decisions. I nearly laughed. Yvette stood, voice calm but lethal. Objection. No medical evidence, police reports, or financial instability supports this. My client earns $120,000 annually with a flawless record. Judge Ree nodded. Sustained. Stick to facts, Mr. Carson. Carson cleared his throat. We have statements from family detailing emotional outbursts. Liam took the stand, swaggering like he owned the room. Olivia's been off, he said, feigning concern. She cut us off for no reason, accused Mom of stealing. Insane stuff. She's always been emotional, like screaming over a phone charger. My fist clenched under the table. Yvette whispered, "Let him lie." Carson smiled. Is she financially irresponsible? Liam leaned forward. She bought a $2,000 couch while we're struggling. Yvette rose. Objection. Her income supports that purchase. The family's struggles stem from Liam's failed businesses. Judge Ree's eyes narrowed. Move on. Victoria took the stand, her gaze piercing me. Olivia's always been sensitive, she said, voice dripping with pity. We tried to help, but she pushes us away, thinks we're out to get her. Yvette stood, handing a flash drive to the bailiff. Exhibit A, Your Honor. The Thanksgiving recording played, Liam's voice slurring. She thinks she's better than me. That money should have been mine. I'll make her life hell. Victoria's voice followed. Don't provoke him, Olivia. The courtroom went silent. Judge Ree looked at Victoria. Is this your voice? Her jaw tightened. Out of context, Yvette smiled. We have the full 37 minutes, Your Honor. The judge waved it off. Enough for now. Savannah testified next, her voice steady despite her small frame. Liam used my name for a $10,000 credit line, she said. When I confronted him, Victoria said it was just paperwork, told me to stop being dramatic. Judge Ree leaned forward. Did Victoria know it was fraud? Savannah nodded. Yes. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Yvette submitted the audio as evidence of manipulation. Nico followed, laptop open. This transaction log, he said, shows Liam transferred $15,000 to a fake LLC. The account traces to Victoria's name. Judge Ree raised an eyebrow. You're alleging fraud? Nico nodded. Yes, Your Honor. The judge turned to me. Miss Olivia, would you like to speak? I stood, heart pounding, and walked to the stand, facing Victoria. For years, I thought I was crazy, too sensitive, too dramatic. But I wasn't. It was inconvenient. I didn't fit your family myth. I turned to Judge Ree. I've worked since 15, paid for college, never asked for a cent. When I built something, they wanted it. When I said no, they called me insane. Carson rose. Objection. Judge Ree cut him off. Sit down. Yvette approached the bench, a sealed envelope in hand. Your Honor, DNA results confirm Olivia is not Derek's daughter, invalidating the petitioner's legal standing. Victoria stood, chair screeching. This is slander! Yvette didn't flinch. This is science. You forged her birth certificate, funneled trust money to Liam, and lied to this court. Derek's voice broke through. You told me she was mine. Victoria snapped. You knew it didn't matter. Judge Ree opened the envelope, her eyes scanning. We'll reconvene in 3 days. I'm blocking petitioner's access to Olivia's accounts. The gavel banged. Outside, Victoria grabbed my arm. What are you doing? I shook her off. You should have left me alone. Liam stepped forward, eyes wild. This isn't over. I met his gaze. You already lost. Yvette appeared behind me. Step back, Liam. He retreated, and I walked away. The Seattle skyline sharp against the dusk. They'd tried to cage me, but I'd shattered the bars. The Seattle dusk painted my balcony in gold, a city that held my scars and my strength. I'm Olivia, 32, and the courtroom victory was mine. Conservatorship denied, my family's fraud exposed, their empire crumbling under the weight of truth. But justice wasn't clean. It left a hollow ache, the ghost of a family I'd never had. Yvette's office, 15 miles away in Bellevue, held the final papers, and my apartment was stacked with donation boxes, shedding the skin of a life built to survive them. I wasn't just free. I was becoming. In Yvette's office, she poured 2 glasses of wine, the leather chairs creaking as we sat. To the end of the worst chapter, she said, handing me a folder. Damages, restitution, a state apology for mishandling the filing. I flipped through hundreds of thousands in awards. This is a lot, I said. She smiled. You earned every penny. I traced the folder's edge, thinking of her letter from the attic. Why did you write to me? Her eyes softened. I knew you'd need the truth, not from a judge, but from someone who's been erased like you. I raised my glass. To the next chapter. Back home, Nico arrived with takeout, eyeing the donation boxes, old awards, photos, journals too painful to reread. You sure about letting this go? He asked. I taped a box shut. It's not who I am anymore. He grinned, setting down Lomaine. You could write a book. People would eat it up. I laughed, the idea sparking. At my desk, I opened a notebook, writing, This is not about revenge. This is about reclamation. Nico peered over. That's your title? I smiled. Working on it. The cemetery, 20 miles outside Seattle, was quiet, the gray sky heavy with unsaid words. Thomas Reeves' headstone stood modest, leaves dusting its base. I crouched, wiping them away. I don't know if you knew me, I whispered, placing a copy of the DNA results down. But I know you now. Footsteps crunched behind me. Yvette, holding 2 coffees, handed me one. Didn't think you'd come, I said. She nodded at the stone. I owed him, and you. We stood, sipping in silence. I started the scholarship fund, I said, in his name, for kids invisible in their homes. She smiled. He'd have loved that. I looked at her. Would he have loved me? Her answer was instant, without question. Weeks later, in a grocery store parking lot, Victoria's voice stopped me. Olivia. She sat in her car, older, guilt-carving lines in her face. I didn't know how to love you, she said. I turned, steady. You weren't keeping me safe. You kept me small. Her eyes glistened. Do you hate me? I held her gaze. No, but I don't forgive you. Not yet. She nodded, and I walked away, her window rolling up like a curtain falling. That night, on my balcony with Yvette and Nico, the city lights pulsed below. We passed a wine bottle, the air crisp. Justice feels messier than I thought, I said. Yvette chuckled. It always is. Nico leaned back. You lost the illusion. That's the hard part. I nodded, pulling out a document. Name change approval, Olivia Reeves. I gained this, I said. My name, all of it. Yvette raised her glass. To Olivia Reeves. Nico clinked mine. To truth. The glasses rang, and for the first time, I wasn't surviving. I was living. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. You think this is over? I stared, then blocked it. The DA had called earlier. Liam faced wire fraud charges, Victoria perjury. If they came again, I was ready. The next morning, I added to my notebook, words flowing like a river. I didn't burn their empire for revenge. I did it to reclaim the girl they tried to erase, to build a legacy for others like her, and to live as Olivia Reeves, unapologetically mine.